Welcome to Speak Out, Stand Out by Green Communications, where we're learning how to help our kids become better communicators. We believe our voices are the strongest asset we have, and our mission is to empower the next generation to use their voices to make a difference in the world around them. Whether you are a parent, an educator, or are just invested in today's youth, we hope this podcast will help you build confidence in our future, one voice at a time. Welcome back to Speak Out, Stand Out. I'm Elizabeth Green and have a very special guest with me today. Kim Hartrum is here. Kim is with the National Alliance on Mental Illness for South Carolina. And we are here to have a heavy conversation, but a very important one. Kim, we're so glad to have you here first and foremost.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to talking to you about these things that our kids are going through.
Yeah, so we know, we grew up, right? We were kids, we were teenagers at one point. We know how challenging it can be to go through those changes and to figure out who you are and all of these things. But it can be even harder for certain people who really struggle with mental health. And I know that we are hearing so much more about this in today's day and age. And I'll be interested to kind of get your feel on this. Is it because it's more common or we're just talking about it more? But as a parent, I think one of the biggest worries for me as a parent is losing a child, but particularly losing a child to suicide. And so again, heavy conversation, but that's what we're here to talk about today, because we need to have this knowledge. We need to be equipped with this so that we can keep those lines of communication open with our kids. So Kim, just to kind of dive right in, why are you in this role and why is this your path in life?
Okay, so I am a youth-centered coordinator. I go to different schools throughout counties in South Carolina, and I talk about the warning signs of mental health conditions and suicide prevention. And one of my job requirements is actually to have lived experience with mental illness. So I use my own story to help kids get a picture of what that can look like if they see it in their friends or in themselves, so that they can get help earlier than I did.
Yeah. So tell us about your experience.
Okay, so as an adult, I'm a former middle school English teacher with a couple other grade levels involved, but that was my primary role. I've always experienced several mental health conditions. The most prominent one for me is anxiety. Every memory I have from the earliest points in my childhood were covered in anxiety, and they still are, but I've learned coping skills to be able to lead a more productive life. So I didn't really have the language, as you were saying, is it talked about more now? And I think that it is. I think that it's a good thing that we're talking about it more, because when I needed help when I was younger, my mom was also struggling, so she was very focused on getting well herself. And my dad was just kind of like, hey, what's going on with everyone? So I didn't have the language to really know what was going on. We didn't have the internet to search and see ourselves and other people. So I just kind of have been winging it for 40 years. I became a middle school teacher, became a mom, kind of kept quiet about it because my family doesn't really discuss mental illness very much. And but my role as a teacher, serving 125 students a day, my stress level and anxiety couldn't take it anymore. So I started having breakdowns. It started with panic attacks. It led to a serious manic episode that came from misadministered medication and just some things that, 2020 hit all of us, and some other things added up. And I found myself unable to teach, grocery shop, make eye contact, or function at all. So I got some help. I've been helped throughout the years, but this help that I got was more specific. And started joining a support group with NAMI, learning about other people's struggles and kind of finding that fellowship, knowing that you're not alone going through this. And that's what I try to get the kids to understand, is that we all have mental health and everybody's is different. It's on a spectrum and we can do things to make it great. Sometimes even if, it can still slip in and we need extra help. And it's not something that you should be ashamed of. So when my kids were born and my students were experiencing mental health conditions and my own kids started showing signs of them, I didn't want to be quiet about it anymore. So once I got my footing back and became a functioning adult again, which took a lot of time, I found this opportunity with NAMI where I could actually speak openly about what I'd been through. And that's given me the opportunity to be back in a classroom, to be around students, to let them know that it's okay to not be okay. And it's given me my purpose back times 10. And I'm just really happy that I'm able to support the students in our area.
Absolutely. A very needed resource, for all students and all people. But let's go back to when you said as a child, you had anxiety, but you didn't know that's what it was. What does anxiety look like in a kid?
And we all experience anxiety, nervousness. I like to put the kids on the spot and say, hey, can you come up here and finish this presentation for me? And you'll see that, oh my gosh, what is she expecting of me? And I'm just giving them that feeling. And that's normal, that stage fright, that feeling that you have right before a test, that kind of thing. My anxiety was so extreme that if I couldn't, as far back as like 3-year-old dance lessons, if I couldn't see my mom in the room, I couldn't function, follow instructions. She would follow the school buses if I was on a field trip so that I knew that she was nearby. I'm still super clingy with my husband and my children. And as I got older, it became harder to do the normal things we do each day, like go to the grocery store. With the sensitivity issues that I have and the concerns of, it's not even fear, it's just the feeling of I don't feel like I fit in that space. So I would feel like I was in the way. Making eye contact with perfectly friendly people seemed like I was in front of a firing squad. Just everything has a level of nervousness to it that's in my gut, it's in my nerve endings, and that's what I felt as a child. I just felt disconnected from everyone else who appeared to be enjoying their life or handling their challenges without that extra piece. Always knocking at the door saying, you're not okay, you're not going to be okay, kind of feeling.
Yeah. And so if we're seeing this in our own children or thinking, oh, that does sound kind of like my own child or me, but I know today we're really kind of talking about our children and keeping the lines of communication open. Where do we start? How do we start to even give them the language to understand their feelings so that we can understand how they're feeling?
A lot of kids show it as tummy aches, not wanting to go to school or participate in an activity, things that they even really enjoy because they have such a pull to not. I don't like using the word fear all the time because it's not necessarily a fear. It's just a knowing that doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. So when you see that, I would suggest being really open to starting conversations that aren't super direct, like, diving right into it, but just kind of getting a feel of where your child might be going through, and then being open to continue that conversation, look for those signs that could lead to something more severe later in life, and start therapy early. My oldest daughter asked me when she was 8 why she wanted to die at bedtime. And I didn't realize that children that young could have suicidal ideation. She has severe ADHD and other mental health conditions. And it was that was the turning point to saying, okay, let's slow this down. Where is this coming from? Why is this happening? And getting help for her. So she's 27. She's doing well. She struggles, but she learned coping skills to kind of change the channel so that she wouldn't be so interrupted by those thoughts. But her ADHD and rejection feelings were like, I'm not smart like they are. Nobody likes me. The parents don't even like me. I'm ugly. I should just be dead. And she started that earlier than age 8. And it was pretty devastating to know that kids that young can be hurting that much. And had she not spoken that out loud, we wouldn't have known.
Right.
And that would have put her further at risk for taking her life.
So what kind of questions can we ask them? Or like, how do you suggest that we do broach, like if we're in the situation where we have concerns, but they haven't come to us with that kind of information where we're like, this is a real issue.
NAMI actually has some resources. I don't have them with me right here, but they have like Tuesday conversations where there's some questions that you ask just to keep that line of communication open. And you can find that on our website. And among thousands of other resources that are good for parents. But keeping that communication open, not shaming them for the way that they feel, like you'll get over it, toughen up. My dad tried to toughen up with me for, sports and things like that. And there was I would be smacked in the face with a baseball before I even realized that I was in a baseball game, because I was so anxious about the situation I was in. So toughen up isn't always the best answer for that. Just really making sure that they know that they can come to you. My kids, all 3 of them have come to me with a challenge this week that's more than I feel like they should be going through. But I'm so happy that they feel comfortable enough to still reach out, and it's just an open line of communication at all times.
Yeah. It's so important. And, I think what you've been talking about is making me think about, we as parents, we want to make sure that our kids are okay, right? So we monitor their grades. We take them to the doctor to make sure that they're growing in the way that they should. But mental health is a huge aspect of things. And there's no just wait, I go to the doctor. Oh, they can say you're a little bit underweight. Maybe we need to add a little protein to your diet. We don't have that when it comes to mental health.
So with mental health, you're looking at, does your child have a decent social group? Are those people within the social group the type of people that they can get, they can have a positive relationship with, that's going to make their life better and not worse? Watching how they're socializing, looking for those kind of key fit-in moments where they're not stressing out because they're trying to have a conversation. They're not feeling really overstressed because it's a sleepover and they don't know how to act. Anxiousness does come with new activities, but if you see things over and over again, and they seem to be getting worse, like a child with depression might look like they just don't care about school anymore. They just, everything is kind of a whatever.
Yeah.
But then you're looking for things like, are they sleeping the whole weekend away? Are they ignoring their friends? Are they stopped eating? Have they stopped sleeping? Whatever the extreme is that's different from their norm kind of gives you a signal that something might be going on.
So you mentioned that, this is a spectrum, right? I know every solution is not going to work for every person, but you were talking about anxiety and being so anxious to go and participate in things or do things. If we have a kid that we feel is like that, is it recommended that we encourage them to, gently encourage them to keep trying new things because we do want them to be well-rounded and all of that? Or is it more recommended that we step back and say, this is maybe just a little bit more than I'm nervous about this activity?
I think a little bit of both. You want to encourage to see if they try it, like it, want to continue that activity with your support. But if you notice that it's taking a toll on them, I wouldn't continue pushing them in that area. But I also wouldn't stop activities, because isolation is the most damaging part of the whole picture. I can't speak on everyone, but for myself, when I isolate, that's when I know that I'm headed back into a downturn. Mm-hmm. So it might not, for instance, the baseball with my dad, that might not have been my thing, but a craft group might have been better. So finding what fits for the child, but if you see that it's just not right for them and they're not comfortable doing it, I wouldn't push that too far.
Yeah, that makes sense. We don't want to shelter them so much that they don't have experiences when it might just be butterflies, might just be like you said, most people get nervous in new situations. But if it's obviously we want them to grow from that and for it to benefit them, not be a detriment to them.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about, like I said, suicide is, one of me, and I have anxiety as well. So maybe not everybody worries about things like this like I do. Maybe it's my anxiety. Maybe it's a mom thing. I don't know, because I only have my lived experience. But as a mom of young teens, and I know suicide rates are so high, and it's just so scary. Besides just like praying about it and trying to our best to keep those lines of communication open so our kids know that they can always come to us. What else can we do?
In many schools, you can find support through your guidance office. In the beginning, that's where I learned that there was something different about me. And then I would continue on with therapy. Even if you don't see someone headed towards a crisis, they can still benefit from therapy to learn coping skills to keep things from happening and change the way your thought process is and things like that. But always making sure that you know that what the next step's going to be. So if you have a child that's super anxious or depressed and guidance isn't the best helpful thing that's happening at school, then you're going to move on to therapy and then, find a psychiatrist that fits for you and fits for your child. So just knowing what that next step's going to be as you're going along. I never had suicidal ideation, and I think it's because my anxiety was so high that she was like, girl, we're not going to do that. That's scary. So I didn't have that experience until it was in 2022. And I was a full adult at this point with full grown children, to have that experience and know all the things I know. I have a bachelor's degree. I've worked with students. I've monitored my own mental health for all of these years. To have that experience and not know what to do during that time scares me for our young people, because I have the background and I have the information to stay safe. So for someone who experiences those feelings at a very young age without the lifelong lessons that come with it, we do need to keep an eye on our kids. We definitely do.
And what if it's not like our child that we're necessarily worried about? Maybe it's one of our kids' best friends. What do we do in those situations? How do we talk to our kids about supporting them, and also knowing when it's not okay to keep secrets?
Right. So in the presentation, we have a slide about suicide prevention, and it's kind of like first aid, like to the student. Here's what you're going to do if your friend is at risk. And it tells them what to look for, like they're withdrawing, they feel like they're a burden, they feel desperate or trapped. And then it gives them the crisis lines that they can text and call 988. And they can text or call even if there's not a crisis, so that they can feel support from other people that aren't right involved in it. But we also teach about having a trusted adult. So you would be the trusted adult probably for your child, and they would come to you to talk to you about something going on with their friend. That's when you would get the other parent involved. And if the parent's not receptive, then the school. So that kind of taking a village to raise a child, because we often don't display the same things for the people that we live with as we do our friends and confidants and when we're young. So just making sure that you're able to contact a parent or the school if something was to be scary.
And I know many of our listeners are homeschooling families. So what would you suggest in that scenario? What would be their next step beyond the parent if their child's not in a school that they can reach out to the counselor?
I would reach out to a private therapist, or if I'm in a lot of schools that are low income. So there's resources for people who don't have great insurance to get the couple of psychiatrists that we have in the area. It's very underserved. So we do have places like Catawba Mental Health where they can talk to a counselor. And when you go to Catawba, it's not like you're going there to get medication. You're going there, you receive an intake interview, and then you see a counselor several times before any medication is administered. So there's a group therapies, there's different things that you can do there as well. We also have, and this might be something for homeschooling students who aren't around a lot of people all the time, if they are struggling, NAMI. Okay, so I'm with NAMI, the state department, and then locally we have NAMI Piedmont Tri-County, and they have support groups every Tuesday night for teens. They have a game night on Friday night. So there's another place that people can go to, be around peers that may be struggling as well. And they're very active in York, Chester, and Lancaster County.
Okay. And this is NAMI a national program, or is it just in South Carolina? Okay. Because if you're listening to this and you're not in South Carolina, then you'll have access to this as well.
Organization, just go to NAMI.org or NAMI and then your state letters like SC.org, and that'll take you to the resources for your region.
Okay. Any other tips or, words of advice or words of wisdom that you share with others that, to help, just to help us navigate something like this?
When I'm talking on the student level, I share my experience in 2022 because it was so unlikely that I would be someone who would die by suicide. And after the devastation that swept me away and my family and finding help again, I felt it was important to share that if you ever feel that moment of not going on any further. I was in this room where I am right now, and I had two ways to end my life. And the final question I had to ask myself was which way, one of these ways will hurt my family less when they find my body. And in that moment, I had a glitch, which was a very good glitch. It was like, whoa, we don't do this. And I was very fortunate to have that. And what I want the students to understand when they see me is that I'm making eye contact with them. I'm making jokes. I drove my own car there. I can do all of the things. And in that moment, I never thought I could do that again. And it was my brain lying to me. So for every student I talk to, there's been thousands in the last year. I just want them to remember the lady that made eye contact and is still alive. So that if they ever feel that happen in their life, that they know that there is something to do beyond this point. This is not the end. You can be at the very bottom of everything in your life and still come back and live a purposeful life.
Yeah. And that's wonderful to hear. And I'm sure inspiring, to especially kids in this scenario, but even just kids who don't really struggle with mental health.
Here's, I have a note here from a student. I'm sorry, I should have had this completely out. It says, thank you for taking the time to speak with us and for the impact you had on me. I'm struggling with my mental health right now, and you really helped me to believe that I can overcome it. I got home from school that day and immediately asked my parents if I could start speaking to a therapist. That was the first time I'd ever reached out to anyone about my mental health, so thank you for giving me the courage that you did. And I have tons of these and responses to evaluations where kids never felt like they could talk about it. And because people like me are openly talking about every detail of it, they feel comfortable enough to ask for help. So
that's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, one last question for you. I have two different kind of questions. One is, how likely are we to be impacted by this in our lives? Not necessarily have a child or somebody we know commit suicide, but have somebody really consider it that's close to us. How likely is that to happen?
I don't have like actual statistics on that, but I think that pretty much almost all of us.
Yeah.
Before I start the presentation, I ask kids how many people know of someone with a mental health condition, and they start listing off bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, all of the things that can really take people from our lives. And a lot of them have experienced it already with siblings that are gone and parents that are gone. And I think that we're all at risk for experiencing this.
Okay, one last question for you then. If let's say this is not something maybe we've really had conversations about with our kids. We just, we know it's out there. We prefer just to think, oh, that's not going to happen here. My kids are fine, right? We've maybe never really broached these conversations or made them aware that, that they can talk to us about anything. What do you do if like we're kind of backtracking on that? Like, not with little kids that we can, obviously we're not going to talk to little kids about this, but you know what I mean? Like we're building those blocks as we go as parents so that they do feel trust in us and can talk to us about anything. But what if we're like, I got to backtrack on this. How can I bring this up with my kid? How can we talk about things like this? Do you have any tips for anybody like that?
And I wish I had that printed off to share with you, but using the conversation starters that we have at NAMI are helpful ways to do that. Sharing your own stories of something that you've been through that, you normally wouldn't share with them, but lets them know that they're not alone, that you felt that way at that same age. And then seeing a professional. There was times where I thought, my daughter was looking for attention, or we could just do this on our own. But at 16, she became at risk for suicide beyond her ideas of suicide. She was hospitalized for it. And I felt uncomfortable taking her. I worried about all of the things. How much is this going to cost? We could do this at home, wait for a therapist. But I no longer have any of those concerns because she came out of the hospital with such a different perspective and was able to really progress further with her plans and, what she had going on in her life. And had we made a different decision, I don't know if that would have been the same outcome. Yeah. And, most of these conditions are they're lifelong journeys that we're on. So we need to, as a family, know your child's red flags. And I literally have a list of red flags for my husband to start checking off if I'm not doing okay. But know them so that as you see them, if you see one or you see two, you're not too concerned. But if you're having a conversation with your child and you're really digging as deep as you can, keep those red flags handy so that you can make sure that you can be proactive about it and you can step in there before the situation gets out of hand.
And I guess it's probably also really important to help them understand that, mental health is a real thing. Just like somebody might have diabetes or somebody might have anxiety. Like it's not like, oh goodness, you know what I mean? Like you have mental health issues. I mean, I think that we're in the world today where that is becoming much more known and accepted, like that it's okay to talk about these things. This is normal. A lot of people feel these things, and keeping it bottled up is not going to help, but it's not really any different than a physical ailment, right?
We actually do talk about mental health and physical health are the same. And I use examples like, if you're having an asthma attack, do you just go to bed for the weekend and hope you feel better on Monday? And they're like, no, you could die. You need to be able to breathe. And I'm like, right. So you go and you get the things that you need to be able to breathe. I said, so if you're depressed, should you just go to bed and hope that it gets better? And they're like, oh, okay. And another example I use for students who think that kids are looking for attention is that if you've ever planned a vacation, do you ever say, you know what else I need to pack? Strep throat and a stomach virus. Because that's what I really want to do is just be sick on this vacation. Like, people don't choose when they're going to have an episode with their mental illness. They're not looking for attention to, I never pack depression with me when I'm getting ready to go on vacation, but sometimes she shows up and we've got to do what we got to do. So getting the kids to see that it's no more scary when taken care of as strep throat, ear infection, or an asthma attack, that they can see it as a physical part of your brain is in your body. So Let's take as good a care of our brain as we do our lungs, Yeah.
Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end on. Kim, we really appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's not easy to do, but really appreciate that you have taken this experience, this horrible experience, and turned it into something that is helping so many kids and teens. And that's just a really, really wonderful thing. I hate that you had to go through it, but I'm glad that you are using it for the betterment of the people around you. So we will make sure if you're listening to this or watching, we'll link to NAMI in the show notes and in the post wherever you're watching this video, so you can click through, find your state. I'm going to be going to check out those Tuesday conversations. I think that's so valuable to have those things in our back pocket, because we just don't always know what to say. And the thing is, we don't have to figure it out by ourselves. There are resources out there like you and like NAMI that will help us. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you are looking for more ways to build communication skills in your kids, grab our free mini lesson on how to craft a polished and professional speech out of thin air, along with 52 fun prompts so your kids can practice every single week. You can find that along with info about our upcoming public speaking and debate courses for kids at greencommunicationsedu.com.